Okay, everyone, we're going to have a little bit different kind of conversation here on Bible Talk today. I recently saw a new documentary called it's the October 7th film, Bearing Witness to the Massacre, and I had a pre-screening of that. Film has since been released. You can watch that, and reached out to my friend Michaela, who you see here on the screen, who I've known for 15 plus years, watched her family grow, and know of her Jewish roots, and have learned so much from you, Michaela. And you thought that it would be good if your friend Justin, who helped produce this film, joined us in this conversation. So Michaela and Justin, I want to thank you for being here and for being willing to have this conversation. That will be good and hard and all the things surrounding that. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having
Yeah.
us, Keith. I'm so excited when my friends get to become friends.
Yeah.
Um, Justin is an incredible individual who I've had the joy of getting to know over the past couple of years. He leads the Kesher Project, which is an amazing organization that connects the Christian and Jewish community to one another, and creating space for understanding one another's stories. And one of the ways that he's done that is through amazing, excellent film projects like The Hope in the Holy Land, which is an award-winning documentary, as well as what you got to see, Keith, which is the newest documentary project, the October 7th, Bearing Witness to the Massacre, which is just such an important film, I think, for
Mhm.
everyone to see because of the context that it provides to the conflict, as well as what actually happened that day. So I'm super thankful for Justin and his expertise and his passion to make sure that the truth is out there and accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for making the introduction, Michaela. And it's Keith. It's great to be with you and to get to know you better as well, and to talk about something that I think is on a lot of people's minds.
Yeah.
Over these past couple of years, and especially now recently with the 2-year anniversary.
Hmm. Yeah. As we record this, we're one day removed from that 2-year anniversary, and and as I watch the film, one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation is I feel like the way that the film is, and this is not going to just be a movie review conversation, but I think that this film is so important for the conversations that it can start and inform and educate on. And I think what was super helpful for me was that the first half of the film, I mean, because it's not a short, I mean, it's not you know, a 45-minute documentary. I mean, it's, I think, an hour and 50 minutes or something like that. And the first half really lays the historical context for the conflict that surrounds Israel and Palestine and Gaza, and everything that led up to then what happened October 7th. And I think that I would love to hear from the two of you as Christians who are Jewish and who have been following this significantly longer. As I told you when before hitting record, that I come at this as a Christian who now recognizes my own ignorance of what I haven't seen, of what I haven't known, of what I haven't walked as closely beside my Jewish friends. And so it's something where the context is something that I think is so important, and that most people just simply don't understand. So whether that's one of you or both of you or the two of you going back and forth, I would love for you to take as much time as you need and want to really paint some context for people who really could not even articulate, well, this is how long this has been going on, and this are some of the significant events that led up to this, and as opposed to just people thinking this all happened on October 7th. So bring some context to those people like me who have been too ignorant for too long. So
Well, I'll start off by saying that it certainly didn't start on October 7th, right? Right. There is a historical context to this. What many people may have heard is, well, Israel's been occupying Gaza for X number of years. It's been a brutal, that oftentimes the word brutal will be put before the word occupation, and that the Palestinians, they were just reacting to that. They were just fighting for their freedom. And so that's kind of the simple narrative that people hear. And then, they might have heard, well, Hamas did some really bad things. And so there's bad people on both sides of this. And I don't really know what position to take. And I don't want to, kind of take the time to get into understanding it. And so maybe they just disconnect and stay silent. I think a lot of Christians, non-Christians, whoever, that's the position that they took. But as you examine what occurred, listen, this was the most brutal massacre within modern history. I mean, what Hamas did on that day in killing, raping, murdering women and children, parents in front of children, children in front of parents, things that we really can't even talk about. This is like nothing we've ever seen. The level of brutality.
And live streaming it.
Yeah, they live streamed it too. I mean,
yeah,
it's hard to fathom. I mean, the film does, I think, help you to do that. I mean, that's part of the reason why we made it, so people would know. And if you just look at it, look just the numbers. I mean, some people might say too, like, well, it was only 1,200 people. There's been a lot of other things that have happened in the world where more people have been killed, and that's certainly true. But let's just remember the level of barbarity to this. And to just scale it, I think, too, for Americans, I mean, this was Israel's 9/11 times 15 or 20. I mean, imagine if on 9/11 that there was 40,000 people who were killed. And not just by an airplane running into a building or crashing into another building, but like brutally killed. And then 10,000 Americans taken hostage by a jihadist terrorist organization, children, and then some of those people killed in captivity, murdered in captivity. So Israel's a very small country, and this day affected everyone in Israel. And Hamas made it very, very clear, if they had the ability to have killed more than 1,200, they would have gladly done so. And Keith, you saw in the film recordings or those who had killed some of the Israelis that day who celebrated it. They were joyful, gleeful about it. And so...
I think and just to kind of re-emphasize that, I think that one of the many scenes that stands out in my head is the teenager, young 20 maybe, who is calling his dad while videotaping himself saying, "I've just killed my first one. I've just killed my first one." And the celebration of his dad celebrating his son murdering one of the Jewish people that day.
Yeah.
And just, I mean, you talk about the brutality, you talk about the evil, and then you see it, and you're just you can't unsee it.
Right.
And it goes from no way was it that bad to, if this was what was filmed and recorded, then what happened off camera? I mean, it goes from unfathomable on one end of it just couldn't really have happened to unfathomable on the I can't imagine the atrocities that actually happened. I mean, so
yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, no, I get it. It was a wake up call for me too. I mean, oftentimes when we talk about evil, we think that it's something that happened in the past. Like, well, that's what Hitler and the Nazis did. That was really evil. Or we think, I mean, that happens in a different place. That doesn't happen in my world. Well, it happened in Israel's world, and it happened in this time and age. And I can tell you, but you see in the film, Todd goes to these different places. Todd Moorhead, who's the face of the film and the narrator, we're there as a team. We're standing in these places where these things occurred. And I can tell you, even in that time, it's really hard to reconcile that what happened there happened, especially because some of these places they're just these farm towns. I mean, you're in this beautiful area of Israel, and to think that such barbarism occurred in these spaces that you're standing, it is really hard just as a human being to put it all together, but it's real, and it happened, and the question becomes why. But before we maybe talk about that, let's talk about the reaction to it in the world. Before the calendar turned to October 8 here in the United States, at 11 something p.m. on October 7th, there was 31, I believe, organizations from Harvard University, right, the premier education institution in the United States. 31 organizations that signed a statement blaming Israel for all of the violence that unfolded on that day. All of it. Held them completely responsible for the massacre of their own people. That, come on, this is just the natural result of being under brutal occupation. And they said it was for 75 years. I guess maybe that's the case. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people who've been oppressed for a long time who've never done this to those who were oppressing them. And what I know, and if you know history, like I know the history of that region, I knew immediately, what do you mean Israel occupying Gaza for 75 years? In 2005, and this is brought out extensively in the film, Israel disengaged completely from Gaza. Took every living Israeli, about 9,000 Israelis, even the ones that had been buried there, all of the military that had been in that territory, and removed them. Gave it all to the Palestinians. Within 24 hours, and this, we don't say this specifically in the film, but people should know that within 24 hours of Israel leaving Gaza, Hamas starts firing rockets into Israel. Over the next few months, there were 3 Israelis who were killed by those rockets, hundreds, thousands more who were injured and terrorized. At the beginning of 2006, there was an election in the Palestinian Authority, and the people voted who into power? They voted Hamas into power. Who is Hamas? Hamas is a branch of the Muslim Brotherhood, which, by the way, is outlawed. The Muslim Brotherhood is outlawed in several Arab countries in the Middle East. Egypt, it's the conflict, the Arab Spring that we remember in Egypt. Who were the ones who took over in Egypt? It was the Muslim Brotherhood. And then Sisi, who's now the leader, had to regain control and fight the Muslim Brotherhood out, and they're still dealing with them today. So this is an organization that believes that Israel doesn't have the right to exist, that they want to establish a caliphate, a territory that is under Islamic control, that's run by or under Sharia law, and doesn't believe that the Jews have the right to their own state. So this is what Israel's dealing with, and it has been dealing with for many years. And so if you don't understand who Israel's enemy is, then you're really going to lose perspective on the conflict that is unfolding today. So these are the things that the film brings out. And then I think it's important too, and sorry to talk so much here, but The reaction to October 8 by many, again, was to celebrate it or to justify it. There were thousands of people, and in fact, hundreds of thousands of people who took to the streets within days of October 7, who justified what Hamas did, and they're still doing it. And then there's been these ripple effects of hatred towards Jewish people worldwide, and so I can tell you, as a Jewish follower of Jesus, it's been really hard to watch this unfold. And there's been many within the church as well who I think have adopted that view that Israel is responsible for the conflict. And so I think these are things we need to get a better handle on and things that we need to process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, how do the two of you respond? Like, if the conversation turns to you're standing in a group of people and someone, whether they say blatantly or they just intimate that this is Israel's fault, like, where do you even start the actual education process? I mean, how do you even engage that? Because I'm also trying to learn of how then do I engage? Because as you know, I live in Seattle. I could go join a Free Palestine, Celebrate Hamas protest right now, and to be clear, not. I think some people don't understand Hamas enough to know some of what gets implied when they say Free Pal. I mean, there's a whole lot of misunderstanding the whole thing. But how do you even start having that conversation?
I start it with, do you believe that Israel has the right to exist? Right there. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's a yes or no answer. I mean, and most people are going to say, well, yeah, I guess, yeah, I think they have the right to exist. Well, guess what? Israel's enemies don't. And it's not just Hamas, but it's Hezbollah. And it's the Islamic regime in Iran. It's the Houthis. It's jihadists around the world who believe that Israel needs to be destroyed. They're not interested in living peacefully side by side to a Jewish state. If it was just about territory, this would have been solved years ago. There would have already been two states. There's been multiple states, peace agreements that have been offered for a two-state solution that have been rejected consistently by the Arabs, by the Palestinians. Why is that? It's because they don't believe Israel has the right to exist. They don't believe that Jews have the right. And this is what, so Zionism, people hear that word Zionist or Zionism and they think it's a bad word. Well, what is Zionism? Zionism is the right of Jewish self-determination within a portion of their ancestral homeland. If you believe that Jews are indigenous to the Holy Land, to Israel, to Judea, Samaria, then do you think that it might be okay that they have a state in that territory for themselves, especially given the centuries of persecution that they've experienced in other countries for the last 2,000 plus years? So it's really a question of, do you believe that Israel has the right to exist? And if you do, then you should also believe that Israel has the right to defend itself, just as the U.S. did when we were attacked on 9/11. What did the United States do? We conducted what was called the War on Terror. And sadly, in every war, people die. Civilians die. That's why we always hope for peace. And so I think a lot of people don't, I think I know there's been people in my life who this is, I think, the first time that they've ever really looked closely at what happens in a war.
Yeah.
And this isn't just any war. This is a war that's being fought in an urban environment that has been built into essentially a military fortress for the last 20 years. And the ones who are conducting that war gladly use their civilians as human shields, as martyrs for the cause, sacrificial lambs, if you will, for their greater quest of the destruction of Israel. And so again, these are the things that many people don't understand, and I think it's good that they learn what's happening there, because the result of not knowing it is to end up taking a position that might leave you on the wrong side of history, and it might leave you on the wrong side of what God is doing redemptively in that history.
Mhm.
Keith, can I add on to that?
For sure.
I think that question is so important that Justin shared of do you believe that Israel has a right to exist? That's a great starting point to assess where you are at in a conversation with somebody. I think one of the things that I look for when someone is engaging me on the topic is there any intellectual humility and curiosity to ask a question? Because where we're at today in engaging around this topic is unfortunately, and I don't know if this is a byproduct of social media, I'm sure it is that people aren't even really asking questions anymore. And so I think being willing to ask the questions is important. And then understanding too the generation that you're talking to about it matters as well. I was invited into a conversation with the church staff that was mostly young 20s, and they were trying to understand, like, which I'm super grateful for, just their humility to ask questions. How did this all happen? Where did it all come from? And one of them expressed, just being really disturbed about the ways that Israel had separated itself from Gaza and the West Bank. The walls. The wall was a big issue for this one individual. And I asked them, I said, do you remember what the airport was like before 9/11? And they were like, no. Um, and then I realized that they were all either babies or maybe under 5 at 9/11. So they have no recollection whatsoever what the airport was like before 9/11. And I shared with them the airport was a place where I went to go hang out with my mom and my brother, and we would wait for my dad, and we would get a pretzel, and we would watch the planes coming in, and we could walk around, and I could meet him at the gate. And they were like, what? Like they couldn't fathom the airport ever looking like that or feeling like that. But I shared with them after 9/11, all of that changed. TSA didn't even exist.
Right.
Yeah.
It was all regulated by each individual airport. But when we realized that we now had a vulnerability, that there was an evil that would exploit that vulnerability, we had to respond to that vulnerability because of that evil. And I explained to them too, so the Intifada, I grew up watching the Intifada happen from my TV screen in my family room on the floor. Most of my peers were not, but I was waiting for the text messages to come in and for the phone calls to come in and for my dad to confirm that, our friends in Israel were okay. They weren't impacted by what happened at the bombing that happened at the pizza place. That was normal life during the second Intifada for me to understand that my people are under attack. And in total with the Intifada, it was more deaths than what occurred on October 7th, but it was bloody and brutal. And explaining to these people, the staff, that the wall was put in place because these attacks were constantly happening. Buses were being blown up. Places where people were sleeping were blown up. This wall was put in place, and 95% of it is not a concrete wall. It's a wire fence. They just did not understand the risk. Where did the wall come from,
Mm-hmm.
and why was it there? And when we put it in context of terms that they could understand, it helped them to grasp more of how we got to that point. So understanding the generation and the context that they don't have, the stories that they don't have, is important to be able to help them find the logic in why things look the way they do today.
Yeah.
Can you quickly, just for somebody that's watching this, can you define Intifada and what people mean by the Intifada and the second Intifada? And can you just give us the one paragraph overview of what
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is?
So the term intifada, it's Arabic for uprising, and it usually means physical resistance against whoever your enemy is, and oftentimes with any means necessary. So the intifada that Michaela was just referring to was the second intifada, which started in 2000 after the breakdown of the, or not the Abraham Peace Accords, but the David peace talks, Camp David peace talks that were being conducted by President Clinton with Yasser Arafat and Barack, Prime Minister Barack, that Arafat walked away from. The potential of a two-state solution. And then what broke out after that in 2000 were several terrorist attacks against Israeli civilians. And that had come, if you think about it, had come on the heels of the Oslo Peace Accords in the 90s, in the late 90s, where there was this great hope that there would be a peace agreement they were trying to then finalize during the Camp David talks. And that didn't happen. And so what came out of it again was multiple terrorist attacks. Michaela referred to the Sbarro pizza attack at a Sbarro pizza right there in Jerusalem. I remember just 2 weeks after I was in Israel, there was what's known as the Dolphinarium disco attack, where 20 some teenagers at a discotheque were murdered by a terrorist bomber, a Hamas terrorist suicide bomber. And so well over, I believe it was 1,400 or so Israeli civilians were murdered by terrorist attacks between the year 2000 and 2003 or 4. Then as a result, Israel built the security barrier, which sometimes is maligned as an apartheid barrier, has nothing to do with apartheid. And so there was the second Intifada, and then in the late 80s and early 90s, there was what was known as the first Intifada. And if you keep going back, there's all these other wars and conflicts, since 1948, when Israel was established as a state. The Arabs did not accept the UN partition plan for there to be two states, one Jewish and one Arab. They wanted one more state, I should add to that, to themselves, and they decided to wage a war against Israel. And this is really, when people ask, like, what is this particular conflict about right now? Well, it's about the same thing as all the previous ones. This just has happened to be the worst, but it's the same as all the previous ones, and it's about wiping Israel off the map. So that's the end goal, sadly.
Yeah.
I think one of the things, Keith, with the Intifada that is bizarre is the way that it's reframed today to be some sort of like shaking off of oppression. But when you understand what it was, you can't divorce it from what it was. It's a dog whistle for more violence against the Jewish people, not only in Israel, but everywhere around the world. And so when you hear someone say globalize the Intifada or use it so casually, to me as a Jewish person, I know exactly what that means. I know exactly what that's saying and what it's calling for us to do. And it goes against everything Messiah would say. So certainly should never be supported by a follower of Yeshua, but a decent human being should
Right.
never support anything that would advocate for what it was.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe one last context question of it. If somebody, what is what would somebody who says that the the Gaza should be owned? I don't even know. I'm wording this incorrectly. The right to the land. Why? What are the arguments on both sides? Why this group should occupy the land or has the right to, and why Israel has the right to? And I'm because I think that so much of it again is framed. It's so much deeper and so much more complex. But a lot of I think the confusion comes up of people don't even understand, including me, obviously, since I don't know how to ask a
Yeah.
question, of what is this the side's argument for the land itself.
Well, there have been Jews and Arabs living continuously in that land for centuries. Jews obviously longer than the Arabs, but they became a minority within the land, particularly after the Arab conquests in the 6th century. Okay, so you had the Arabs, often referred to as well as the Muslim conquests, who took over that territory. And so there's been Arab Muslims as well as Arab Christians who've been living in that land, and Jews as a minority. And so they both have a connection to the land. And so the question is, can they share it? The Jews have said, yes, we will share it. In 1936, there was a partition plan that was proposed by the Peel Commission. That was rejected by the Arabs. Again, the UN partition plan in 1947, which was then again rejected. And every offer, as I've mentioned since, and it's purely because it's a zero-sum game for the Arabs. It's not enough for there to be 22 Arab states. It's not enough for there to be 50 some Muslim majority states. There needs to be one more, and it needs to be in place of Israel. So, listen, theoretically, I'm not against the existence of two states, but practically, I am against it. I mean, how do you in a sense, reward a people who have been seeking your destruction and trying to do it, as we saw very clearly on October 7th, with a state? I mean, a state should be given to people who are responsible with what they've been given, who are building something, who don't want to wipe their neighbors off the map. I mean, those are the type of people who should have their own state, but that hasn't been the case for the Arabs. And what's happened to Israel, too, every single time that it's given land for peace, what did they get from Gaza? They got rockets, terrorism, October 7. What did they get from Lebanon when they withdrew from the southern part of Lebanon in 2006? They got Hezbollah, who also wants to wipe Israel off the map. And that has nothing to do with the Palestinians. Okay? Mm-hmm. And now they're being pressured to withdraw from the West Bank. Well, what do we think Israel's going to get if they did that? So there needs to be massive, massive reform within the Palestinian society in order for me to sit here and say, yeah, I think a two-state plan is a good idea.
I think I would express how important it is to not just zero in on Hamas and the Palestinian question as much as it is to zoom out and understand Islamism within the context of all of the surrounding nations, right? So Justin referenced Hezbollah. There's the Houthis in Yemen. And then you, of course, have the regime in Iran who are funders of terror and really kind of the puppet master of all of these terrorist organizations. And it is all connected to Islamism. And in Islamism, if you do not understand their motive, you don't understand what's happening here. They are operating under the idea of Dar al-Islam, which is that once the land is conquered by Islam, it is theirs forever. And after the fall of the Ottoman Empire and the way that all of those states were cut up and created, and also the history that Justin referenced, I look at that and think, I don't know that this is as much about a Palestinian identity and a Palestinian state as much as it is the goals of Islamism and using these ideas to try to accomplish and further those goals. And if you look at the history and if you look at the archaeological evidence in the land, there is no basis for Palestinian identity predating the Jewish people being in the land of Judea. And that's even outside of like a biblical perspective of the land. And I would say that there is an attack on a biblical perspective of the land right now. Candace Owens is spinning so much deceit right now among the conservative minds today that's even creating confusion for them of, are the Jews today the same as the Jews in the Bible? Are the people in Israel do they even belong to the land, or was Jesus a Palestinian Jew? All of these bizarre ideas are coming out of confusion and not understanding the truth. And I think a part of that is because we don't actually understand the motive and the goal of the enemy and what's happening here. And Islamism is the umbrella over all of these groups. And the primary goal is to, what Justin said, create a caliphate. And it is not about it's a complete rule of Islam over the land, Sharia law. And so it's not about coexistence. There's never been a desire for that in these groups. So I think the question isn't as much should there be, it's to what Justin was getting at is how, when there is no desire on their part for that to happen. How do we do that? And Israel has come at it from all of the angles: land for peace, offering up resources, and we're ending up at the same place. And it's because I think they know what they are after, and we have to catch up to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So some of what both of you have mentioned is the confusion and the misunderstanding and the misinformation. And so for me, a Christian without Jewish heritage and understanding of the complexity of what's happened in the last several hundred years, living in America, in a world of social media where I could pick up my phone right now and within 30 seconds, I could find something saying that Israel is God's chosen and something that says Israel is evil. I could find both. So how do I discern misinformation from truth, and what are the red flags that I should be looking at when I see somebody share something, and to not just believe it because it was shared by somebody that I know and like? Or how do we even start to find the right information?
Okay, so let me first say this. The right information is always going to be in God's Word. Okay. Now, it's possible, of course, that you could read something in God's Word and twist it to mean something else. But I don't know how you can twist what I'm about to read for you in Jeremiah 31, verses 35 through 38. So listen, this is what the Lord says. Okay, this isn't Justin saying it. This isn't Michaela saying it. This is what the Lord says. He who appoints the sun to shine by day, who decrees the moon and stars to shine by night, who stirs up the sea so that its waves roar, the Lord Almighty is his name. Only if these decrees vanish from my sight, declares the Lord, hear this, will Israel ever cease being a nation before me. This is what the Lord says. And in case you didn't get it the first time, he then says, only if the heavens above can be measured and the foundations of the earth below be searched out, will I reject all the descendants of Israel. Now hear this part. Because of all they have done, declares the Lord. In other words, in spite of all they have done, in spite of rejecting me as their God, in spite of them not embracing Jesus as Messiah, in spite of them maybe not even conducting a perfect war, which, by the way, no country has ever done in the history of mankind. In spite of all that, they will continue to be a nation before me. Mm-hmm. Okay, then. I get it when I hear God say that. So what does that mean for me? Where should I then stand when it comes to Israel's right to exist? So if I'm clear on that, I believe that Israel should be there, can be there. Then the question becomes, okay, what am I going to listen to? If I start hearing voices that are trying to undermine Israel's legitimacy or trying to demonize it in some way or hold it to a standard that we don't hold any other country to, including our own. I mean, again, I mentioned the war on terror that the United States conducted after 9/11 to go after the Islamists. Mm-hmm. Our country killed, and this isn't something to be proud of, it's just a fact, but our country killed approximately 400,000 civilians in our quest to go after the Islamists who were responsible for 9/11. And not only did we kill 400,000 civilians, but we killed approximately about the same number of combatants. And in the urban environments where the United States has conducted wars, we've never, ever done better than killing four civilians for every one combatant. So when the United States would kill a combatant, there was about 4 civilians who would also die. According to experts right now, military experts, again, not according to Justin, according to military experts, Israel is about at a 1-to-1 or a 1.5-to-1 ratio in Gaza, which is the most remarkable numbers for a war in an urban environment ever in the history of modern warfare. But yet, Israel's being accused of genocide. Right. Throwing that word out there. When what does that do? It's demonizing them. So
yeah, and speak to that, because that is one thing that is a word that I think the two things that I'd like for you to speak to. One is Israel is committing genocide, and they completely overreacted to only 1,200 people being killed, right? I mean, so that's one narrative that gets spoken. Another, which is separate but in the same line of misinformation, of Israel is blocking all aid into Gaza. And they're killing people that are trying to bring aid into Gaza. So I could speak to the genocide conversation and the overreaction conversation, as well as what's happening aid-wise. I would love to clear some of that.
Yeah, so I think it's important to understand that there are people out there who are intent on demonizing Israel, period. If you don't know that, if you don't believe it, then you're going to completely misunderstand what's being said and the accusations that are being made towards Israel. So the people are going to say whatever they have to say to make Israel look as bad as possible. The fact of the matter is that Israel is not committing genocide. I don't care who says it, but their intent, and they've made this very clear from the very get-go, is to eliminate the threat. And who is the threat? The threat is Hamas. And there's approximately, according to, and this, most people would agree, from the beginning of the war, 40,000 or so Hamas militants in Gaza. That's who Israel has been going after. Sadly, civilians die in all wars. If Israel wanted to commit genocide, it could do so like that and save itself from its own military, from its soldiers dying in combat. Israel has not done that. So they've conducted really one of the most remarkable military operations and have almost at this point completely decimated Hamas. So I've gotten to the point where sometimes you just can't reason with people. They're just convinced it is what it is. It's those who are more willing to have a reasonable conversation that you can talk to mention these things that I've just brought up. And so when it comes to the genocide point, that's what I would say. And it doesn't meet the definition of genocide either. There is no intent for Israel to completely wipe the Palestinians off the map. If that were the case, then why do they have 2 million Arabs who are living in Israel freely, who are part of Israeli society at the highest of levels?
And I would say that's not to minimize the civilian casualties that has occurred in Gaza. And I would say no group of people are more brokenhearted about that than the Israelis. They're the kibbutzim that were attacked on October 7th were the peace lovers, were the ones who would go in and drive Gazan civilians to the hospitals for visits. So I think a lot of people do not understand Israelis and how much they desire for this to end and for that to end. So I want to say that's not to discount the civilian deaths that have occurred. Every death is horrible. But to call it a genocide is a lie and a libel, which is a tool of Hamas propaganda to demonize the state of Israel, and by demonizing the state of Israel, Jews around the world are also affected, as we've seen from the unbelievable rise in antisemitism globally since the conflict began. So I think that's important for us to just put out there, is I think a lot of people don't understand how much the Israelis desire for this to end and how much they grieve bloodshed. They have shown remarkable restraint in this war. No other army sends out flyers or makes phone calls to civilian areas before attacking, putting their own soldiers at risk to do so. And that has been their method the entire war. And they own mistakes that they've made, which is not something that Hamas has ever done. They handle themselves with such integrity. There's no way that motive could ever be proven.
Yeah, they acknowledge their mistakes.
Genocide.
You know, they conduct investigations into the mistakes that they make, and
publicize it.
Yeah, which of course Hamas.
They don't hide it.
Hamas, I should say, Hamas publicizes what they do too, but for different purposes. And really, if there was a genocide that was occurring in Gaza, would you not think that Hamas would be quick to accept any peace offer that Israel was providing? Like, okay, yeah, we'd be happy for you to stop doing what you're doing right now. But they don't. And as we are recording, Hamas is stalling the peace proposal. So if there was a real genocide, I would think that those who were being genocided would want to stop it right away. And then the other thing that you had brought up, besides the genocide, what was the other?
The aid.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. So the aid. You really got to check your sources on that. That's what I tell people, because Hamas has been stealing a lot of that aid so that they can control the economy there. And the organization that's been created by the United States and Israel, apart from the UN, has been delivering, I think, 99% of that aid gets directly to the people, whereas the aid that the UN is conducting, only 20% of it gets to the people, and 80% of it is stolen by Hamas. And those, by the way, those numbers are from the UN itself. So,
Mm-hmm.
and Hamas is using food as a weapon
Mm-hmm.
against Israel, and it's part of their propaganda campaign to
Mm-hmm.
demonize Israel, which this campaign has sadly been very, very successful. The war of information.
Right, right. And so turning turning things outside of that region of the world, as I see headlines daily, if not multiple times a day, of anti-Semitism here in the United States, in the UK on Yom Kippur, in France, in Italy. We see this all over, and uh, is it just a result of Hamas propaganda, or is there something else that is fueling this? Is there something that Christians who want to be allies with their Jewish friends that we can do to help? I mean, it's mind-bogglingly skyrocketing, and so what do you think
Yeah.
is feeding some of that, and what do we do?
Well, it goes back to, again, how Israel's being demonized, and then Jews worldwide are guilty by association because of the assumption, and in some ways rightfully so, that Jews support Israel. And so the belief then is, well, you're supporting the killing of babies, or you're supporting genocide, you support apartheid. So it's demonization by extension, which really is unfair. I mean, nobody's doing that to Russians, right? If they're not for what Russia is doing to Ukraine, nobody's going around and blaming all Russians worldwide for it and attacking Russians. But this is where it's so irrational when it comes to people who are attacking Jews, just because they assume that they must support what Israel is doing, or the caricature of what Israel is doing. So underlying it has to be something that's deeply spiritual. It's very irrational, and so it's hard to give a rational explanation to something that's so irrational. And so that's why I believe at its core it is something deeply spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
And the conclusion that I've come to is that ultimately, whatever God is for, or whoever God is for, you can be certain that the enemy is going to rage against it. You can be certain that the enemy is going to attempt to steal, kill, and destroy
Mhm.
by whatever means necessary. And the
Mm-hmm.
propaganda campaign that every lie comes from the pit of hell, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the lies right now, the propaganda, Satan he's been very effective at convincing a lot of people that Israel and the Jews are the bad guys, which is not the case.
Anti-Semitism has been around forever, for a long time. And so what we're seeing today is not new. It just puts on different faces in every century. And it always uses the cultural language of what the ills society is experiencing in that cultural moment, uses those words to pin the blame on the Jew. And so, in our cultural moment, words around justice, oppressor, oppression, are significant to our time, to our cultural moment. And so the ability for anti Semitism to cloak itself in justice is one of the most bizarre forms of anti Semitism I've ever studied.
Yeah.
Because it's like studying the epitome of an oxymoron. And so I think one of the things that I have noticed, because the church has married itself to the justice movements in a lot of ways, because what are we supposed to be about as believers, right? We are supposed to be about justice, righteousness, mercy, and caring for the least of these. And I 1,000% agree with that and try to live that. But the way that it's being used in this moment to turn the church's heart towards Israel against it is one of the things that I feel like we're kind of coming to a breaking point or a reckoning with what the church is going to have to decide it believes about Israel and the Jewish people in a way that it hasn't had to in recent history. And so, unless a believer is curious and is studying their scriptures and is doing that prayerfully with the Holy Spirit, it will be very easy for the church and individual believers to embrace a theology that justifies anti-Semitism. And so that's what I see coming, and I think for believers specifically, it's alarming. And I will tell you, I've witnessed it personally. I have a private Instagram account, not a public. I'm not interested in growing a platform. Private Instagram account. Every single one of my followers, believers. Since October 7th, 500 people plus have unfollowed me because of what I've shared about the hostages or what's happening in Israel. And I've been uninvited from speaking at conferences, because of my views, because it is too controversial to be platformed. And I think one of the things that I'll add to that before like kind of ending this is that one of the things that I've seen happen is the conversation around Israel get put into a political bucket.
Mm-hmm.
And so because it gets put into a political bucket, for a lot of Christians, it's hands off because that's a no-no right now. And we don't want to upset the left or the right people in our congregation. We want to try to stay real center here. And what I would say is this is actually not a political issue. Politics will affect it, but it is not a political issue. These are people. And there are things that are not
Mm-hmm.
political about this conflict that are being turned into a political issue that is also causing people to not even want to engage it or try to understand it. So theology and then politics are kind of really muddying the waters and how safe people feel to engage this reality of how much anti-Semitism is getting a foothold in our society. And it's been said that when Jews start ringing the bell about the increase in anti Semitism, we're the canary in the coal mine, calling out the moment a society's moral fabric is decaying.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're seeing happen.
Yeah. 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 The church is repeating history, unfortunately, because they said the same thing during World War II while the Holocaust was occurring. It's a political issue. We're going to just stay
Yeah.
focused on the gospel. And that's why you had people like Pastor Dietrich Bonhoeffer say what he said,
Yeah.
is that silence in the face of evil is evil itself. God will not hold us guiltless. Not to speak is to speak, and not to act is
Mm-hmm.
to act. And so when it comes to the Israel issue, I think it's really important that we have conversations like we're doing right now, and that we speak and that we act on behalf of those who are being maligned and libeled and slandered, like Israel and the
Mm-hmm.
Jewish people are in our day.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to point people to some more reliable sources of information for those that are watching this. I feel like if anybody is wherever we're at 59 minutes into this and they're still watching, then they're the people who are wanting to know more, who are wanting to
Mm-hmm.
understand, who are open to ask, as you put, Michaela, open to asking the questions with humility.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to provide resources for them. So maybe if there are some that are easy for people to remember that you could say right now, but also if either or
Mm-hmm.
both of you want to email me, I can put in the description of this video and in the email that I'll send out alongside the link for it. Some whether it's people, if you're on social media, people on Instagram that they can follow, people, news sources that have a more accurate portrayal of what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to know some of those resources. Are there some that you can think of just off the bat for somebody who's not looking at the description or is driving in their car, but they can remember it or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm a fan of All Israel News. Joel Rosenberg is the senior editor. So All Israel News, and then JNS, the Jewish News Syndicate, is a Jewish source that I rely on. And then, of course, I would recommend our films that we've produced. I know
Right.
that's yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little biased,
Oh,
but
well, I'm
yeah,
definitely putting a
yeah.
link to that. And
So
and it's just October 7 film,
yeah,
right?
October 7
Oh,
film, the number 7 film.com. And then you can connect to our other film website through the October 7 film website, which is hopeintheholyland.com. And on that website, we have a resource page that lists several
right.
resources, including the ones that I've mentioned, as well as a whole list of social media influencers, content
Mm-hmm.
creators, educators, who I think are really good for people to follow. And this, I think, is especially important if there's parents or grandparents who are listening right now. Point your kids, your grandkids to these influencers because
Yes.
if they're not following these people, there's a very good chance that they're following someone else who is giving them a very distorted and potentially a demonic view of Israel and what's going on in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
I'm a big fan of honest reporting.
Yeah.
That's one of the accounts that Justin mentioned. They do a really amazing job of kind of understanding the conversation that's happening out there, finding the facts and relaying the facts.
Mm.
So I definitely recommend honest reporting as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
Okay. Well, yeah, send me some of the links of this, and I'll fill the description with with links to that people that that are humbly asking questions
Hmm.
and wanting to engage in this. And again, Justin, I want to thank you and Todd for
Yeah.
creating this film. Michaela, I want to thank you for inviting me to the pre-screening of this film. I will be sharing it. I've already told people about it. I will be continuing to do so. I will be promoting this. And if there's anything else that I can do to stand alongside both of you through this, just I may be up in the corner of the country, but
We're super
I'll come
As,
grateful.
visit you both in Chicago for pizza, and we'll talk.
Deal.
as long as I can get some salmon when I'm out there with you. So,
Yes.
You come out, and we will make it happen, my friend.
thank you.
So, well, thank you for having this conversation,
Thank you.
and thank you for making this film. Thank you for Michaela educating me over not just the last 2 years, but over the last 15. I'm looking forward to buying your boys some ice cream. Again, it's been too long. So,
Yes.
all
Thank
right.
you, Keith.
Thank you,
All right,
Keith.
everyone. Well, please check out the links below. Watch the October 7th film, Bearing Witness to the Massacre. And if you have a friend that is a Jewish friend, then just reach out to them. Let them
Hmm.
know that you are with them.
Yeah.
Don't say you understand. You do not understand, but say that you are with them, and I will wish you both and any of my Jewish friends watching this. I wish for you and pray God's shalom for you.
Thank you.
Amen.
So,
Thank you.
okay. Well, we will see you on the next episode of Bible Talk, everyone. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you.